Good evening, everyone. You are in the spotlight with Brian Gardner for this Tuesday, March the 27th, 2018. And good to have you all here for our first and only show of the week. As we start, as always, let me start off by reminding you all the ways in which you can interact and contribute to our show. Have your voice heard by emailing us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Hashtag itspotlight411 is what you want to use whenever you're tweeting about our show or tweeting at our show. Make sure that you use that if you can, or if, this helps us out, so make sure you do that. And on Facebook, just search In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook, and then make sure that you like our fan page so that you can follow us and all that good stuff. All right, so here we are again, our first and only show of this week. We're running a little bit behind. I had a little work thing that ran a little bit behind, set me back a little bit, but we're here. And, you know, we don't have as much to get to. That's one of the benefits of the tournament going as you go through the tournament. Well, it's a benefit for us as far as doing the show because we don't have to talk about as many things. There's less games to talk about. But it's also a negative because you want, you know, the tournament's a good and awesome thing, and you hate that, you know, it ends so quickly and it kind of moves so quickly, but it is what it is. And so we don't have as many games to go over, as much stuff to talk about. So, you know, so it is what it is, but we'll do all that. We'll look back at our brackets. I have to get that out. Kind of get an idea of where we're at with the tournament and go over the games and all that good stuff. Look ahead to the Final Four, which should be an interesting, very interesting Final Four, and we'll talk more about that later in the show. So we'll do that. And then we have, you know, the usual stuff, the wrestling, the other sports stuff we have to get to. If there's anything, I'm not sure if I have anything on the agenda. There might be a few little things, but we'll see. Depends on time, too. And then we'll also, of course, do our entertainment stuff, which we'll start with box office, TV highlights, all that coming at you here tonight on our only show of the week. Couple of little quick hitters here at the top. Because I kind of said once we got to the end of March, I let you all know how the schedule is going to hash out as we go through April. Well, at least for next week, we're only going to do one show again, and that's going to be on Tuesday. So I'm going to stick to one show next week, and then after that, we'll see. I'm thinking the next week only going to be one show as well because my birthday's on a Tuesday. I don't know if I want to do a show on my birthday. I've done it before, but I don't know. It depends on my mood. We'll see. I'll let you all know next week about that. But at least for next week, there's only going to be one show. So keep that in mind. Again, it'll be on Tuesday like we've been doing throughout the entire month of March. And as far as when we go back to two shows, I'm thinking we'll probably go back to two shows in the middle of April. But again, depends on scheduling and all that kind of stuff. So stick with us on that. So that's the only news I really wanted to mention because people would ask about the schedule. And as for everything else, we'll see how that falls into place over the course of the spring and summer because there are a lot of things we had planned for the winter that got kind of tossed aside because of everything that's happened. But we still plan to do those things. And I think we'll probably try to implement them maybe in May or so. So that's where we're at with that kind of stuff. I just want to make sure I know that off the top of the show. Other than that, nothing else but getting down to business. My co-host has appeared on the on my screen, I should say. Mike, you're in the spotlight.
Yes, so I am.
You are indeed.
I guess so.
Yes.
Okay.
This is good. This is good.
I suppose on some level it just might be.
Yeah. Yeah. I love our conversations. They always go nowhere. They meander. It's great.
Of course.
It's
Naturally.
great. Yes. Anyway, we have some things to get to. Again, not, like I said at the beginning, not as much as last week, but still we got some things to get to. And we'll do what we did last week. We'll start off with the box office and then kind of work our way back. And we have a headline that we haven't had in about a month, and that is that Black Panther is not number one anymore.
Oh, no.
I know, after 5 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the new number one is Pacific Rim, not by much because Pacific Rim didn't do well. Now, we actually have some things to talk about this week. We haven't had a lot to talk about the box office. It's been kind of like, you know, the same stuff, you know. But here's the thing, okay, folks? Pacific Rim was never going to do well in the U.S., okay? It's basically whatever it makes here, it makes here. The first one didn't do great here, and that was in the summertime, okay? This was always going to be more of an overseas international movie, and it's showing that in its box office total if you look at the numbers. All right, it's made 122.4 million internationally, 30.2 here. It's up to 152.6 on $150 million, but it's going to be fine. It's going to keep doing really well overseas. It'll do what it does here, and that'll be that. This movie was not made for some kind of big domestic. This was not going to be Pitch Perfect, okay? Where the first one didn't do very well anywhere. Just kind of got a cult following. They moved it to summer. They put some promotion behind it, a little bit more money, and all of a sudden it became this big, huge deal. All right? That was never going to happen with Pacific Rim. Pacific Rim wasn't really a cult following. Pacific Rim was a movie that did well overseas, did okay enough here to justify doing another one. And that's what it was. And it basically is following that same formula again here with the second film. This is not, did I expect to do a little bit better than this? Maybe a little bit. Not much. But it's not earth-shattering here. This is not shocking. Okay? So, yeah, the headline is Black Panther's no longer number one, Pacific Rim's number one, but with a disappointing return. I really don't see this as that disappointing. Disappointing would have been if it didn't do well overseas. That would have been disappointing. That would have been a disaster for this movie. But that's not the case. So it's going to be just fine. Now, what's not going to be fine is the box office in general. Because while we've been saying that it hasn't been a bad box office year so far, the numbers, look, if you take Black Panther out of this year's box office, it's bad. March has kind of brought it down. January wasn't too bad because you don't expect much out of January. February was huge because of Black Panther. March had a lot of big releases that were expected to do well. A Wrinkle in Time being one of them. They didn't do horribly, but they didn't do great. And when you compare this March with last March, which featured movies like Beauty and the Beast and Logan and Power Rangers and Kong Skull Island, last March was a historic month. It was a huge month that did huge business. That does not happen usually. You don't usually see that many films in March of that nature. Okay? So that was a very unusual circumstance. So comparing this March to last March is going to make it look even worse. But it's not a good storyline for the box office, though. I think I saw a number where it said, what was it, Black Panther accounted for what, like 20-something% of the business this year or something like that? That huge of a percentage? That's insane. That's insane. It's the 5th largest domestic release of all time right now. Excuse me. It is making its way up the charts. It's making its way up the charts. It's on the all-time list right now domestically. I'm going to see where Black Panther's 5th. It's at 633. It's definitely going to pass Jurassic World, and it's definitely going to pass Titanic. It's going to end up being at least 3rd, and it has a very good chance of hitting Avatar at 2nd with 760. Very good chance. Doesn't have enough juice to get to Star Wars at number 1 for domestic. But here's the funny thing. We've had 2 movies in the last 3 months that have broken into the top 10 in domestic gross all time. We had Black Panther, which is at 5th with 633. And then we have Star Wars The Last Jedi in 7th with 619. So that's pretty, I mean, if you didn't have those 2 movies, I hate to think where anything would be. Oh, and Jumanji and Greatest Showman have helped the last couple months too. Now, where does Black Panther sit on the worldwide numbers? Well, right now, it is, and this for the record, Last Jedi sits at 9th on the worldwide at 1.3. Black Panther right now is 12th at 1.2. So it should pass Beauty and the Beast, Frozen, and probably The Last Jedi and Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows by the end of this weekend. That would put it in 8th place. And if you look at the rest of these numbers, Avengers Age of Ultron 1.4, Furious 7 1.5, Marvel's Avengers 1.5, Jurassic World 1.6. It's probably going to finish at least in 4th at 1.6 billion. It's got enough to get to that point. I don't think it can touch Star Wars at 3. But for Black Panther to get to number 4 on the all-time worldwide gross list is amazing. It's amazing for that movie. So Black Panther continues to be a storyline, even though it's lost its number 1 ranking. It came in 2nd place, did a really, really good number with a little over $17 million, which is only a 35% drop-off, which is very, very good for a movie in its 6th weekend. Again, Pacific Rim debuted with 28.1. You know, that was that, and we already talked about that headline. Now, there's another headline for a new movie this weekend. That's a movie that was in its 2nd weekend and expanded its release into 624 more theaters. A movie called I Can Only Imagine, which stayed put in 3rd after last week, which it did very, very well. 13.6 million, a 20% drop off. Again, you know, release dates matter. You know, you release this film this time of year, Easter and everything else, it helps, and it's helped this movie. It's made a very good. It's a $7 million budget. It's made over $38 million just domestically. So it's quite the positive storyline right now at the box office, which needs outside of Black Panther. It doesn't have much positive to talk about. Here's another negative, though. In its opening weekend, Sherlock Gnomes pulled in only $10.6 million. This is a movie that's budgeted at $59 million. It's done $4.6 million overseas for a $16.2 million return so far. That is a horrible, horrible number, which it will not make back because you're getting close to Easter. You're already at Easter now. If you're not making it now, you're not going to make it then. So, terrible total. That's a flop. You know, there's a group of people that probably wonder if they should have made the 2nd one. I didn't think it was a bad idea, but I think they waited too long. Whatever the case may be, did not pull in a good number. Total flop, total disaster right out of the gate. Not much else you can say about that. Speaking of disasters, Tomb Raider can now be probably classified as a bad return. I won't call it a total flop, but a bad return. Dropping from 2nd to 5th in its 2nd weekend to $10.1 million. 57% drop for a movie that, again, they were expecting a lot for it. And a movie that many of us felt shouldn't have been made because most people just felt like the original version was good enough. Now, again, it's not a total flop. It's going to make money. But this was a movie that was supposed to start a franchise, and that sometimes quantifies how you react to things. It's made $42.4 million here, 169.7 overseas for a $212.1 million worldwide total. And $94 million budget. Now, that's, again, you're going to look at that and go, that's not that bad. That's not that bad, right? Now, and you're going to say, well, isn't that kind of similar to Pacific Rim? It's making more money overseas, et cetera, et cetera. It is, but Pacific Rim is the 2nd film in a franchise. This is supposed to be the start of a new franchise. And that's not a strong enough total to get out of the gate with. It's just not. Not with the reviews and the carryover. So, not a good look for Tomb Raider here. And outside of that, you had dropping from 4th to 6th, A Wrinkle in Time, $8.2 million, almost a 50% drop-off. Again, this film continues to struggle. $89.1 million is the worldwide total, complete mess for Disney, but they can accept a loss every now and then. You know, but still, I mean, it's they'll take what they can get and then they'll move on from it. You know, risky thing that they didn't work out. What are you going to do? They all can't be winners. Love, Simon dropped from 5th to 7th with 7.6 million, 35% holdover, gained 32 theaters. Not too bad. Actually, that kind of made up for its opening week, which kind of was a little bit disappointing. It's made $24.3 million on a $17 million budget. All right, not too bad. Now, anything it makes is gravy. It's going to make a little bit of a profit, and, you know, it is what it is. Outside of that, you had Paul, Apostle of Christ at 8th with $5.1 million, which got it right over its budget, so that's good. Seasonal movie, obviously that helped. And then other than that, we had 2 other new releases, Midnight Sun and Unsane. Midnight Sun came in 10th with a little over $4 million, which I told you all could happen. It might not break $5 million, and it didn't. And Unsane, $3.7 million in 11th. Again, not shocking. I said it might not hit $5 million, and it didn't. Outside of that, you had a limited release of Isle of Dogs, Wes Anderson's new film. That made $1.7 million domestically in its limited release opening in 27th year, which is not too bad. And then outside of that, there's nothing else to mention as far as headlines go. Greatest Showman and Jumanji are still making money at the box office. They're not breaking a million, but they're still making money, even though they're both out pretty much out on digital and Blu-ray and such. So they're still making money. So if you're wondering about those movies, which have been big storylines over the course of the last couple months, they're still hanging out. And still making money. So so the storyline is really still Black Panther, Pacific Rim, and in general, the box office is not having a lot of positive, but thankfully Black Panthers helped carry it through, along with Jumanji and Greatest Showman. So they're hoping for much better results this weekend and putting a lot of pressure on a movie from Steven Spielberg to kind of pull them out of the hole. And that's Ready Player One, which will be opening on Thursday to try to get ahead of the action on Easter weekend. A sci-fi action film from Warner Bros. Will be opening in over 4,100 theaters, a huge total. Directed by Steven Spielberg and written by Zach Penn. Stars Ty Sheridan, Olivia Cook, Simon Pegg, Mark Rylance, Ben Mendelsohn, T.J. Miller, and McKenna Grace. Again, PG-13, Steven Spielberg. It's got a lot of buzz, a lot of people excited for it. Been very well promoted. I think it's going to have a huge opener here with Easter. Monday, some people have Monday off, might help it too. This movie should be number one, and I think this movie will break 45, 50 million. I don't know if I can see it getting to 60, but 45, 50 million should be a safe bet for Ready Player One. Outside of that movie, you got two movies opening on Friday. God's Not Dead, A Light in Darkness, a drama from Pure Flix, opening 1,675 theaters, PG, obviously a Christian film. Those films have done very well. You'd expect a decent total there. And then you have Tyra Perry's Acrimony, a thriller from Lionsgate, opening in 2,000 theaters, directed and written by Tyra Perry and starring Taraji P. Henson. I don't expect a lot from it. It's R-rated, number one, not in a lot of theaters, so maybe around 5, 6, 7 million if you're lucky on that one. So I don't know if Isle of Dogs is expanding, but if it is, you might find that one around 3, 4 million as well as it expands through. So the way I see this weekend going, Ready Player One, number one, 45, 50 million. Pacific Rim, number two, maybe around 16, 17 million. It's a drop off pretty heavy. Black Panther around maybe 12, 13 Easter weekend. Figure more people might come out to see it that haven't yet. I think you're going to see God's Not Dead right around 10, 11, 12. So right up there with Black Panther. And then let's see what else. I can only imagine maybe around 8, 9. I think Sherlock Gnomes would drop to around 7, along with Tomb Raider around 6.5, 7. Wrinkle in Time, 5.5, 6. I Love Simon right around 5 or so million is what I see coming up this weekend. And then again, I think Tyra Perry's Acrimony around 5 or 6, so she should be right there with that movie as well. So that's how I see this weekend's box office hashing out. Mike, thoughts? Anything you want to add to my, spiel here?
Your spiel, huh?
My spiel. I'm bringing that word back.
Yeah, it's already been brought back. Sorry. No, not really, because there's nothing really to talk about. It's like, oh, Black Panther did great. Yep, Black Panther still did. Pacific Rim's a niche movie, but it has a very cult-like following, and I would think that, many of those people who supported the first one came out for the second one, or waiting or something. I don't know, but it did all right. But there's a lot of hype for Ready Player One. It's a lot of hype. But there's a lot of money wrapped up in Ready Player One. I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of those franchises in there are not just Spielberg related. So I would imagine Ready Player One has to make quite a lot of money over its kind of pulling a real profit. But it's an ambitious project. So, I mean, it's worth celebrating, and I guess it's worth seeing if that's what you're into. So it'll be Ready Player One's definitely going to win next weekend, but hard to say where it'll hold up after that. But yeah. Black Panther did well. Black Panther's going to continue to do well. That is not surprising. So, anyways, that's all.
Okay. Let's see. All right. So with that being said, we'll move on from the box office to TV highlights. Mike, I'll just let you go. What were your TV highlights for this week?
I actually have to think about TV highlights now. This is weird. All right, I'm going to start off with my yes. I'm going to start off with my usual Murdoch Mysteries. It's fantastic. Inspector Bracken Reed, one of the main characters, has to delve into the art to solve a murder of an hoity-toity artist amongst hoity-toity artists and patrons of the arts. It was a solid mystery that focused on different characters doing different things. So, again, Murdoch Mysteries is on Ovation. If you're not watching, I'm not sure why you're not watching. It's a phenomenal and fantastic show. All right, go with Legends of Tomorrow, DC. I didn't get to see all of it, but as of last week, I'm almost caught up. It is an interesting show. John Constantine came back. Let's see. They did some cool stuff with Kid Flash. I don't know where you're going. I don't have much left. They did some cool stuff with Kid Flash. They did amazing stuff with Mick Rory, and Rory is one of the most interesting characters on that show. So, excuse me. It was fantastic. It's fantastic. I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to finishing that episode along with the next one, which is titled "I Ava." It's going to be good stuff. Legends of Tomorrow's killing it, so they'll be back. Let's see. I finished Kevin Probably Saves the World. I saw the season and more than likely series finale. It ended in a really cool spot. They found another Righteous, and the Righteous was really similar, it seemed, to Kevin. He had some stuff in his past that he wasn't proud of, but and in the end, he's still a good person, and they kind of reconciled his angel friend there. Excuse me, they reconciled the angel friend there, revealed her to Kevin's sister and niece, mostly his sister. But yeah, there was enough progression where if the series ends, it's in a good spot. But if they would like to pick it up, well, there's more Righteous to be found, and it's super interesting to see where they could go from there. But if they leave it here, then it ends on a high note. But the series is all about finding high notes. It was quirky. It was positive. It was different than everything else on television, on network television anyway. It was a nice show. And unfortunately, its run is probably over. Jason Ritter needs more work, and I'm not just talking about Kevin and Drunk History and Another Period. Another Period is a show I don't talk about on this show, but it's a comedy. It's a period black comedy on Comedy Central. It typically follows Drunk History and uses a lot of the same actors. And it is surreal. It is a weird, dark comedy, but it is rather funny. It is rather funny. So yeah, I would recommend Another Period. It's worth catching up on, I suppose. It's a weird show, but it's good. It's good. And of course, I will finish by saying Trevor Noah at The Daily Show, Stephen Colbert, The Late Show are killing it right now. And same with Jimmy Kimmel. They're killing it right now. They have a lot of material. Oh, and John Oliver last week tonight. They're all killing it. I mean, they have a lot of material, yes, but they are doing fantastic satirical work. A lot of truth being spoken on those shows. So I'd recommend those too. So go ahead, Brian. Explain why you liked Krypton so much.
Oh, I would love to, Mike. I didn't like Krypton though, so let's not talk about that show. Um, terrible show. Terrible show. I only watched. How many minutes did we watch of that show?
The first 20 minutes.
That was more than enough.
It was honestly, I could see there was some effort put into it, but good Lord, it was slow, it was plotting, it was brutal, it was just
the thing's
not good.
The sad part is I see potential in doing a show like that.
Oh yeah.
Especially since remember when we saw Man of Steel, what was our favorite part of Man of Steel? Was the stuff on Krypton.
It was really good stuff, yes.
Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, I have no issue with making a show out of that. I think there's a lot of potential there. Unfortunately, they took all the interest out of it. So that's what happens. But yeah, what was I gonna say? What did I watch this week? Well, I thought Walking Dead had a good episode this week. They did a nice little Romero, may rest in peace, nod with the zombies. They find I think it's the best use of zombies that they've had in like 3 seasons. Which is interesting for a zombie show, but they gotten away from it a little bit. It was a good episode, lots of action. I thought it was probably the best episode of this, maybe except for the Ezekiel Carroll one earlier in the season, probably the second best episode, I guess, this season. So that's good, I guess, that they had a decent episode for once. I know it's not like a ringing endorsement, but I'm trying to do things that Mike doesn't do because I don't want to be repetitive. Because I can just, we both agree on Legends of Tomorrow because it's the best thing going on right there. But,
go ahead, Brian. Reveal yourself to the world and tell everybody about how you love period mysteries.
Oh yeah, yes, of course. Yeah.
Although don't immediately dismiss them. They are some of the best stuff on television. Easily. Murdoch Mysteries, Dr. Blake, Miss Fisher. Good stuff.
It's hard enough to watch the majority of the stuff I want to watch. So, but yeah, it's hard. But and this is that time of year when you got basketball on. You're trying to watch all the. That's really the thing. It's hard to catch up. I was behind before basketball. Now I'm even more behind. So, so it's kind of been hard to kind of watch a lot of things. I have my priority television, which is, there's some shows I get to and there's some shows I don't. Walking Dead's easy. It's on a Sunday night, so most times I watch it live. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is easy because most times it's on a Friday night, and I can get to it either Friday night live or I get to it Saturday morning. So it's easy to get to those shows. But there's something else I watched this week. I'm trying to think of what it was before I get to S.H.I.E.L.D. because I know I'm gonna get to S.H.I.E.L.D. What was it? I'm trying to think of what it was. I did. You know what? I know what I forgot. Remember last week I said there was a show that I forgot to mention. I couldn't think of it. I'll bring it up now. And Mike's gonna roll his eyes to the back of his head. It's gonna be great. I did watch the new American Idol. Finally, I kind of put it off because I've been busy, but I watched the first episode. I haven't gotten to the rest of them yet. Kind of behind, like I said. And it was all right. It's very heavily edited. It's interesting that they've downplayed Seacrest to the extent that they have. But it's all right. It's still not what it used to be. It's better than it was when it went off the air. I'll give it that. I think the judges are fine. I think Luke. It's kind of interesting to see. When you heard of these judges, you kind of had your idea of how they were going to turn out. The only person I knew anything about going into this was Katy Perry, because Katy Perry's been a judge on Idol. She was a guest judge multiple times, and she was really good each time she was. And she's still good, but I think there's times when she feels like she's trying too hard to look like she's having fun and not being really overly serious. Because really, if there's somebody that's kind of like the person that edges towards Simon Cowell, it's her. If you really watch the show, you see that Luke Bryan is more like a male version of Paul Abdul, which is interesting, and Lionel Richie is Randy, which I think we all called. If you're looking for comparisons to the original judges, I do kind of miss during these, because obviously during the auditions, I do kind of miss the really bad people. I don't like the fact that they've kind of edited them all out, and they're just focusing on people that are good or people that are kind of in between. And like when you cut them, you kind of feel bad because they're not that bad, but they're not good enough to be on the show. I feel like they still needed a little bit of the bad singers to kind of mix it up and balance it. Because otherwise, it just feels like, oh, well, this person's not bad. Oh, well, we'll see him next year. You know what I mean? That's kind of it. Doesn't feel like, I don't know. It doesn't feel as entertaining, but it's all right. You know, it's good enough to get by. I think it'll get better once they get to the live shows, I'd imagine. That's always been my feeling that the show really takes off once you get to the live shows, and they're getting to that now, I imagine. So, so I like that. I'll just mention Shuka. I want to get to the other stuff we have to do tonight. How do I do this without spoiling it? Because I think it's very hard. This was I did not expect what I got in this episode. You know, obviously they promoted it with the return of the Doctor with Fitz and, you know, the whole framework thing. And I'm just going to say the twist that happens in the third act of this episode is incredible. And Ian the cast director was amazing. So was Elizabeth Henster. They were amazing in this episode. It's an Emmy episode for both of them. They can not going to get it, but was absolutely phenomenal. It was such a well-built, well-written, performed thing that they did. And it completely shook the entire show in a way that is not normally what this show does. You know, normally these twists are they can be kind of comic booky. They can be kind of like, this is more emotional and psychological, and just it's really, it was a really cool twist that really shook the entire show. I give them a lot of credit for going where they went, because that's a huge risk. And they're moving fast. And I'm going to say this, even though I think I liked a lot of the first half of the season, there are a couple episodes I kind of didn't like. I think the third and fourth episode I didn't like really much. But even, you know, that the whole arc in space was all right. It was fine. They've done better. It was all right. First two episodes were really good. The final couple of the arc were really good, and the in between was kind of like, okay, you know. But boy, once they got to Earth, the show kind of felt like S.H.I.E.L.D. again. It kind of felt back into place, and everything kind of just rolled. And that's where they're kind of at right now. It's really, they're on a high right now. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, check it out. Don't spoil yourself before the episode, because it kind of does ruin it. It's one of those episodes that you don't want to spoil. It really is. And that's all I got. That's all I got. So TV highlights, folks. TV highlights. That's it. That's it for the week. Now, before we get to basketball and all the other sports stuff we have to get to, we got some wrestling to get to. And I'm just going to throw this to Mike, because we were talking about this. I think, yeah, we talked about it yesterday, but we also talked about it last week. Remember, Mike, how we were talking about how they were going to deal with the mixed match challenge and Charlotte and Asuka?
Yeah, I'm literally watching that right now on mute.
Okay, well,
and I'm very surprised. Actually has typing in like commentary, so I don't have to listen to Colin Graves, even though and Beth Phoenix, even though they do really good work. It's too bad that I can't listen to it because you just threw it to me. So yes, Charlotte is injured.
Do you know what the injury is?
The injury, I believe, is not wanting to face Asuka in the finals.
You're about right. You know, but you know what it is, though. For real, I'm not even joking. It's dental work.
It's dental work.
I'm just going to be honest with you, and maybe I'm completely wrong about this. You know what they did here, right?
They think they did it on purpose, because
they didn't want her to face it.
They're trying to they're trying to keep Asuka and Charlotte away from each other, but unfortunately that leaves you in a weird position, because one of the teams Asuka and Miz had to beat to get to the finals of the Mixed Match Challenge was Finn Balor and Sasha Banks.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what, it's sad because Becky Lynch was actually voted to be Bobby Roode's partner tonight, but the other options were Carmella and Lana. So Becky won with an unbelievable 80% of the vote.
Shocker.
No way. Shocker, right? You put Becky in there with the other two? No, crazy. So, and if somebody's going to get a decent challenge out of Sasha Banks, it's definitely Becky Lynch.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm watching it right now, and right now Becky and Sasha are kind of doing some chain wrestling, and it's pretty good. Nobody's denying how good Sasha Banks is, but her attitude is, not great. But yeah, they're doing some chain wrestling right now, and I just feel like and Sasha, because you're not going to want to spoil that,
right? So, I obviously saw a lot of people worried about Charlotte. When they heard this, if you read between the lines, I think that's what basically happened was she could have probably worked the match tonight, but I think they took advantage of the fact that she, didn't have to. They had a reason, and they took her out of the match. It kind of helps them out a little bit and works around that booking. So don't worry about Charlotte. She's still going to work WrestleMania. And shockingly, apparently, is Shane McMahon.
Yeah, Shane McMahon. It's going to work WrestleMania. I didn't get to see SmackDown, but I saw that. Yeah, and by the way, another little highlight from the Mixed Match Challenge, Sasha Banks is in fact the worst friend out of the 4 horsewomen. She betrays Bayley, and she is not good to Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch is not happy with the way Sasha's been treating Bayley, and things broke down. So if there's any doubt, Sasha Banks is the worst friend of the bunch. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, so yes, Shane McMahon, with all of his hernia injuries and food poisoning, is going to wrestle at WrestleMania with Daniel Bryan.
Yes. Yeah.
And by the way, totally unrelated today, I got an email tease. They do a lot of the independent New Japan and Ring of Honor merch. And today was day 1 of for 12 days only. And by the way, this is to the Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn being fired thing. For day 1 and for 12 days only, you can get El Generico shirts. So there are El Generico shirts available at Pro Wrestling Tees. And today, for the first time in 3 years, El Generico actually tweeted. So, wow. Brian, could you think that this could be a return for El Generico?
Maybe.
I think that would be great.
I mean, it'd be nice.
I hear the child in the background would be excited for the return of El Generico, and don't we all? Also, I hear a baby in the background too.
Of course. And speaking of you mentioned Owens and Zayn, so that stipulation that I mentioned to you is on that match.
Mm-hmm. If Owens and Zayn lose, they remain fired. If they win, they are reinstated to SmackDown Live.
So yeah, and that's where I heard it was going, and that's what they're doing. The only thing that that really shocked me was I was convinced this morning, based on what was going on with Shane, that they were going to find a replacement for Shane McMahon.
Excuse me.
I was very convinced that they were going to do that. I am kind of shocked that they didn't. So I don't know what the deal is there. I didn't watch SmackDown, but I know that. Again, they announced him in the match, so it looks like he's going to be in the match. So we'll see. Another thing that was changed tonight, well, they officially announced Bludgeon Brothers versus New Day versus the Usos, which we all knew was coming. But here's a big change. And I think the fans, push this. Rusev's been added to the United States Triple Threat match.
Well, it helps that he beat Randy Orton tonight, so.
Right. Maybe Rusev wins that. Just saying.
Because the
fans are behind him. So, to me, this is kind of like an acknowledgement of what he's done, and to get him on. Obviously, they want to get him on the card because of everything he's done. But I mean, that would make it for a nice fan moment if he wins. So, because the fans are going to be going crazy for him, they're going to be behind him.
It's going to be a heavy Rusev Day crowd. You know it.
Yeah. So they might be better off. I mean, I know Rusev held this title before, but
he hasn't held the title in how many years now?
Yeah, since he lost it to Cena, right? So a couple years. Yeah. So it's not the worst thing in the world to put it back on him.
No, give him something to do.
So we'll see. But they added him to the match. So now, the card's starting to take shape. I think the only match we're waiting on is Cena Undertaker, right? Pretty much at this point.
Pretty much.
And that should be done on Monday. You were talking me off the air. So, I haven't watched SmackDown, but it looks like there's a lot of development, so I would check it out. Now Cena Undertaker will be confirmed on Monday. So Undertaker either show up or make his presence felt. You mentioned this to me, and you're not the first person that did, about how Monday night is the NCAA championship game. So you're running this big angle that's been building for a good month or so, and you're going to culminate it, and plus the go home show for Mania. Now you can't help that happened, but you're culminating this big angle and setting up this big match in 1 week on this episode when it's going up against the national title game. Now here's the thing, okay? You're right. A lot of people are right. This is an issue, but as we've seen over the last few years, whenever they run this show up against the NCAA championship, sometimes it's the Raw after Mania, right? That runs up against it. Sometimes it's the Raw before WrestleMania. Sometimes it's just a normal Raw building up to WrestleMania. Depends on how it all falls, right?
Yep.
Usually they run a big angle in the first hour because the game doesn't start till 8, not till 9. Pardon me.
9:05.
Yep, they'll run a big angle in the first hour, and then they'll just let the rest of the show they'll just do their thing. And then they'll, except for maybe like they'll try to time halftime, like they'll figure halftime's around maybe 10:15, and try to put another big angle in there. And then the rest of the show just falls into place, right? So that's what they'll do. So I'm thinking they'll start the night. They might start the night with Cena Taker. Or they'll try to time it out where they get that during the half. Or, they could even play around with 9 o'clock because the game doesn't really start exactly at 9. So they have moments.
Well, that would depend on who's in the final.
Exactly.
If you get Loyola in the final, Loyola Chicago, excuse me, I keep saying Loyola Marymount. Loyola Chicago in the final, it doesn't matter when. Because it's the second time in history a mid-major would be in the championship game, and they have a legitimate chance of winning, so people would be automatically invested in that. Correct. So WWE wouldn't have a chance unless that game was a blowout.
I agree with you 100%. I think you have to wait and see. You'll see. You're going to know on Saturday night. And you go into Monday with the idea, if you get, like you said, if you get that kind of game, then you book accordingly. You run that big angle in the first hour, and the one thing they can't do, and the one spot they cannot use, it sucks for them because they probably would like to use the main event slot. That main event slot can't have anything of significance. It'll probably have Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar like a contract signing or something. But they can't run anything earth-shattering in that final spot because that's going to be timing out right around the end of the game. You're going to be in either like the last 5 minutes or closing in at the end of the game, right? Or the trophy presentation or whatever. So you're not going to want to run anything in that spot. So again, your windows are from 8 to 9. You might be able to squeeze in 9 to 9:10 or so, depending on like we noted, depending on the matchup. And then you can try to time it, which they've done over the years, at halftime. Where you might think, all right, 10, 10, 10, 10, 15, right around there. You can run it then. But then you're also in a condensed segment. You might only have 15 minutes to get that segment in. And you're hoping that people are going to be flipping the channel back to USA during the game. So your best bet really is to put in that 8 o'clock slot. Just to make sure that you have that full hour and you have everybody's undivided attention. That's really a best bet. I imagine that's what they're going to do. But Cena Taker will be confirmed on Monday, and then you have all the usual other stuff because every other match has been well built. You know, and other than that, as far as news goes, you know, Jeff Hardy might be is cleared. You'll probably see him at some point here, maybe in the Battle Royal. Paul Heyman's going to Doug Goldberg. What else is there? Dean Ambrose, interestingly enough, and this has got people wondering, has been pulled from events during WrestleMania 34 week. I don't know what that's about. Makes you wonder. I mean, we know Samoa Joe's been cleared. He can show up anytime. Bobby Lashley can show up anytime. But everybody's trying to look for signs of who might be Braun Strowman's partner. And so anytime something's in there, like, oh, just Samoa Joe, oh, maybe it's Bobby Lashley, or whatever. Now people are thinking, well, maybe Dean Ambrose is going to be his partner. I don't think so. As far as I know and everything I've read, Dean Ambrose is not clear, and he's not expected to be cleared until at least June. Because most people wrote him in for SummerSlam. So I don't think it's him. Joe's always a possibility, but I think Joe's going to be a big surprise on the night after WrestleMania. He's going to attack Roman Reigns, and that's going to be that. But you can't rule out Bobby Lashley either. I mean, they could use him in that spot. So we'll see. But there's a lot of talk about those particular topics. But yeah, that's been some of the news from this week as far as WWE goes. So a couple of big Cena got some interesting news today, Mike. I don't know if you heard this. John Cena is going to be Duke Nukem.
What?
John Cena is going to be the star of the Duke Nukem movie.
That's
interesting.
Sure.
I mean, look, it's been rumored for a long time. We've heard this story before, but now it's confirmed.
I mean, that's good for John, but
a lot of people think it's going to totally flop. But
yeah, there is no interest really in the Duke Nukem character right now. Yeah. Anyways, there was a bit of a surprise in the Mixed Match Challenge.
Oh, really?
Bobby Roode and Becky Lynch actually beat Sasha and Finn.
Oh.
What happened was Sasha came in. Finn Balor had Bobby Roode beaten with the coup de grace, but Sasha wanted the tag. So Finn tagged in Sasha, and Sasha, hit Becky with the double knees, and Roode rolls to the outside. So Sasha does a suicide dive to Bobby Roode on the outside, and God bless Bobby Roode. He was a trooper. He caught her. Of course he would. Bobby Roode's the man. Then Roode gets up, and then Finn Balor drop kicks him into the barricade outside. Sasha rolls in. Meanwhile, Becky Lynch is recovered enough and rolls up Sasha Banks for the 3. So are going to be Charlotte. They're saying that Charlotte is going to be back next week. So it's Charlotte and Bobby Roode versus The Miz and Asuka in the finals of the Mixed Match Challenge. So it looks like they're going to let Asuka and Charlotte kind of interact here. They're going to feel each other out.
I'm a little surprised by that.
I'm a little surprised that they're going to do it too, but I think they want to see what they're going to kind of put on. Now Charlotte and Asuka are not going to go all out like it's a WrestleMania main event.
Right.
But they're going to feel each other out. I think the majority of the work is going to be building up Miz and it makes sense. I was about to say Miz and Balor, but no, majority of the work is going to be done by Miz and Bobby Roode.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that's where they were going to go for it anyway. Before they're like, "Hey, do you know who needs a title right now? Randy Orton," because it was. I think the original plan was supposed to be mid card champion versus mid card champion, and then Asuka and Charlotte. I think I don't think they veered off track from the what the plan was for the mixed match challenge final. I thought this would be the final all the way through. But I thought Rude they wanted the U.S. champion and the Intercontinental champion to kind of go up against each other here,
right?
And the fact that you didn't get that because do you know who needs the title right now, Brian? Do you know who needs the title? Randy Orton needs the title. Randy Orton needs the title. Randy Orton hasn't had a title in a long time. They just ran the title change for the sake of having a title change, which was dumb. It was dumb. I like Randy Orton, but he should not be United States champion right now. Probably should have stayed on Bobby Roode because it would kind of mean more for the mixed match challenge to begin with. But no, we got to give it to Randy Orton because Randy Orton's above the mixed match challenge. Even though he's not.
Yeah. It's interesting to me. Now, so that flies in the face of what I said earlier, that they use the dental thing as an excuse. So if they're willing to go put her out there next week with them, then forget it. That theory doesn't hold water. So yeah, I'm really shocked. I'm really shocked that they're gonna. But again, it's not a one-on-one match, so maybe they're just figuring, like you said, it's a feeling out kind of thing. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I'm kind of shocked by that, but good for hey, it's nice that Becky Lynch got a win on TV, even though she's not going to figure into things next week.
Well, it depends. Well, they're leaving themselves an out, so if Charlotte is not ready for some reason, Becky Lynch would just be the fill-in again.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, we'll see. But yeah, and as usual, it's all Sasha Banks' fault.
Yep.
Consistency, right? Yep. All right, so I think we covered all the WWE stuff. We got a lot of basketball stuff to get to. I mentioned earlier that there might be other sports stuff to get to, and really what I was talking about, I have a couple of things that jotted down that we've kind of put off talking about. One of them is the whole thing with, I mentioned this to you over the weekend, was the whole Kawhi Leonard Spurs thing. Where they had a team meeting, and I guess people, Tony Parker led it, and they're trying to implore him to play. Nobody, there's talk that he practices well, and he's got his own doctors. Nobody really knows what's going on. I toyed with discussing that tonight, and then I thought about it, and so much of this is like this is what he's saying. This is what it's a story, and it's something worth following. And the Spurs got some bad news tonight too. I think LaMarcus Aldridge got hurt tonight. So there's that. Seems like he's gonna miss a few games, but still, that's a blow to them. But you know what I'm saying though? Like it's one of those, like, you're hearing bits and pieces, and there's only a few things that for sure are definite. So like the team meeting and how they want him, and there's some doubt of some of these players, and they're imploring him to play, and there are some things that are true, and then there's a lot of things that people are speculating about, like, he doesn't want to be with the Spurs. He's got a problem with Greg Popovich. There's a lot of things there. So rather than go into this, because really, I'm going to be honest with you, 20% of it would be fact, and the other 80% would be speculation. And I don't really like to do segments like that where it's so much of it's speculation. I like a little bit more facts. So the short, just to get to the point here, I'm going to put off talking about it until we get to the playoffs, and hopefully by then we have an idea if he's going to play, what's going on. And I think this is a story that's going to kind of spill into the playoffs and then spill out into the offseason and dictate where the Spurs go. Because it's going to be, to me, the writing's on the wall here. I agree with a lot of people that there is a problem here. There's either a lack of communication or something. There's something wrong here. And to me, it's shocking because the Spurs are such a well-run organization. And I'm not saying it's the Spurs' fault, but they're such a well-run organization. To have this kind of situation happening, when this guy is a guy that's supposed to be their cornerstone for the next decade. It's shocking. So it's something that it's going to bear talking about. And again, it's going to be a storyline that spills into the postseason and into the offseason. So no doubt have more opportunities to talk about it. But I don't think tonight's the right time to do it when so much of it's a speculation, hearsay, and whatnot. So that was kind of the other sports story that we've been kind of big sports story that we've been kind of putting off talking about. Other than that, it's just a bunch of little things. Look, we'll talk more about this next week. We'll preview the Masters because I think the Masters is going to be a tremendous event this year with Rory back and Phil back and Tiger playing well. Should be quite the event this year. So we'll talk more about that next. And other than that, I mean, there's little things like baseball season starts on Thursday. People want to know if we're going to do a preview. Much like we've done with all of our other sports, we'll probably wait till about 2 weeks. I like the idea of waiting until about 2 weeks in. Gets you a couple weeks to kind of look at the teams, see who's in, kind of get a sense of who's on these teams and whatnot. And then you can go into. We used to do it before the seasons. I like it better doing 2 weeks into the season. I think it helps a little bit. So we won't do a preview right now, but obviously the baseball season gets underway on Thursday, so lots of excitement with that. So if you want a baseball preview, get that in the next few weeks. So really there's nothing else that's pressing to cover tonight as far as sports go, other than the NCAA tournament. So that's why we're going to focus the rest of the show on that. So we won't dive into any other sports stuff. Don't worry about any of that right now. So I just wanted to get that out and let you all know my thought process there, and kind of give you an insight into what we might discuss over the next few weeks as far as sports. Because after this week, Final Four is over. We're going to wrap up college basketball next week, and then it's just about baseball and it's about the NBA playoffs. So that would be what we'll be about. We can get into some of that other stuff and work into some of them other things. So it's probably better to leave some of that stuff off until the next few weeks. So let's get into the NCAA tournament, which after a crazy first weekend that saw the biggest upset in NCAA tournament history, that saw 2 number ones go down, that saw just a crazy amount of shocks, okay? And not just upsets, but upsets in dominant fashion. Just probably the best first weekend this tournament's ever had. We had a second weekend that was pretty straight to form. Yeah, you still have the continuing Cinderella story of Loyola. This great story with Sister Jean and everything that they got going on and how great they are defensively and how they can get off to it offensively. And the teams that they beat in to get, Kentucky, which, not Kentucky. I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Who they play? I'm forgetting who they played. Wow, I'm looking at the top of the bracket. I can't remember who they played. Oh, Nevada. They beat a very good Nevada team. And then they advanced to the Elite Eight where they play Kansas State, who beat Kentucky. Now, we talked about that game. I mentioned that the problem with Kentucky is a problem with scoring. And Kansas State has probably one of the better man-to-man defenses in the country. That's not a good mixture for a team that struggles to score. And you saw that even though Kentucky only lost by, I think it was 3, defense hurt. The defense of Kansas State held them down, and they just didn't shoot the ball well. And one of the reasons why they had come in with so much momentum is that they had been offensively doing really, really well. They were shooting the ball well. Well, the minute that stopped, and it was going to stop eventually, they weren't able to survive it. And that was their problem all season long. So that's why Kentucky lost. And Kansas State advances. And once you saw Kansas State, well, I knew Loyola was going to beat Kansas State because Kansas State, Loyola can match Kansas State for defensive intensity, and they're probably even better at it. And I think they had the better offense. And that showed in that game. They beat them handily. And Loyola goes to the Final Four. Now, there was a lot of talk about Kentucky that I kind of laughed at on what was it, Thursday night? Yeah, Thursday night. I laughed at it. And what I'm referring to is, I think John Calipari mentioned in the post-game press conference that, he felt like it was a good year and that they were successful. And look, every coach, for the most part, says that, except for maybe Duke. Okay, they all say that. because they don't want their kids to get down. A lot of these kids are going to come back next year. They don't want them to be, you know, too much pressure on them by saying, oh, it's because it's college or win or bust. Okay, Duke does it because they're Duke, but you know, they don't act like the pros. Well, we lost. It's not a good season. No, they treat it like there was success here, that there was growth, and so from that point of view, I kind of like, well, why are people laughing at that? But here's or criticizing, and here's the other part that I laughed at. You know, because as Mike will tell you, since John Calipari became the Kentucky coach, even before that, when he was at Memphis, and you know, he started pushing the one and dones and basically making his teams in the NBA training camps. Ever since then, John Calipari has always been more about just getting these kids ready for the NBA. You know what you're going to get with him. Yeah, does he want to win a championship? If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. He's always been kind of like whatever about the title. He's always been like that. So to see him after the game be like, well, all right, you know what? It sucks, but you know what? We did a lot of good things this year. Why are people shocked by that? This is not something new with him. Well, you saw in that press conference what you've been getting with him for over a decade. So why are we acting surprised? I'm like, oh, well, that's not the Kentucky way. Oh, well, where have you been? Kentucky fans, where have you been? Basketball fans, where have you been? This is not out of character for John Calipari. And even getting away from the fact that it's John Calipari. Most coaches are like this. Do they want to win a championship? Yes. But they still get a lot of positive out of the season. They don't just go, oh, that season sucked. Close it up. They say it hurts. They say they're disappointed. But they move on with their life. And they don't want their kids to get too down on themselves. So it's nothing in that press conference. I laughed at the reactions of some people from that press conference. It was ridiculous. But yeah, so Loyola comes out of the South, which was a bracket that just imploded. And then down in the West bracket, you had Gonzaga. I just lost my train of thought. Lose to a very good Florida State. Florida State was kind of like lying in wait for most of the season. Florida State, you know, for years, you watch Florida State, whether it's in the regular season, in the tournament, whatever, and they've always been athletic, but they've always been more geared towards defense. They've never been a good offensive team. Well, this year they're a good offensive team. Their defense was lacking at times, and they get to the Elite Eight. It's uncanny how, again, you know, scoring matters. You do have to defend, yes, and you can get to a Final Four for defense, yes, but eventually scoring's going to have to happen. And when Florida State finally had a team that can score the ball, they get to the Elite Eight. Go figure. And Florida State played a great game against Gonzaga. I thought, and look, their defense, I felt, came into their own in this tournament. It really did. I think they found their defense in this tournament while they got to the Elite Eight. Because I think their defense was there was a defense there. They just needed to find it, and they did. They did in this tournament. And at times they looked like the Florida State of old just with an offense, because like I said, they found their defense and it got really good. And they beat a good Gonzaga team. Michigan puts a whipping on A&M. Just destroys A&M. And really just, again, the same A&M team that dominated North Carolina was just completely shredded up by Michigan, who just shot the ball well, defended the ball well. It was like a total role reversal for Texas A&M, who just got beaten. I mean, again, Texas A&M makes their game in the paint, and they did not do a good job. They did not shoot the ball well. They didn't make the most of their opportunities. They got blown out of the building, and Michigan easily moves on to face that Florida State team, who did all they could. Florida State played a great game. Again, their defense, I thought, was solid. Offensively, they really did a good job. But I said it before this tournament started. Michigan, and there used to be a few teams that did this. Michigan State way back when in the early 2000s. Louisville under Rick Pitino. There are some teams that the later the season gets, they get better. And they end up being they end up being built for tournament play. John Beilein's Michigan team is that. If you look at, since John Beilein's been with Michigan, they played very well in conference tournament play. They played very well in early season tournaments. And they played very, very well in the NCAA tournament. They're always a tough out. They're just built for that. The way he plays his offense and the way that they get after the ball on defense, they're perfectly suited for tournament play. And that's why I always say they're a very good bet, unless they get a bad draw. And the draws in this, and when I saw the bracket, even though there's a lot of good teams in that bracket, North Carolina, Gonzaga, Xavier, I had a good feeling about Michigan only because of the fact they know how to play in these. They know how to adapt, and they always find a way to get through these tournament games. They do. And John Beilein's always done very well in tournament games. He's always done well in tournament games. And you see now Michigan gets to the Final Four. They did just what they did just enough against Florida State, and they go to the Final Four, and they will play a Loyola team who is quite the Cinderella and who really has a legit shot here. This is going to be a great basketball game. And I actually give the edge to Loyola because I think their defense is a big X factor in this tournament. They defend like Virginia does, and I think what makes them more dangerous than Virginia is they can score. I talked about this last week. If Virginia could ever score to go along with their defense, Virginia might have won 2 titles in the last few years. It's just that they can't score. You have to be able. You can have as good of defense as anybody, but you have to be able to score. Loyola can score to go along with a defense that rivals Virginia. That is incredibly dangerous. Incredibly dangerous. I think Loyola is going to beat Michigan. I think they're going to have an 11 seed in the title game. Because I think they're going to get all over the Michigan perimeter shooters. They're going to look at Wagner and say we'll let him beat us because we don't know what we can do about him. He'll just get us into trouble. They're just going to shut everybody else down. I think Loyola's going to go to the championship game because I think they got the advantage on defense. I really do. That's one side of the bracket. The other side is going to be a little bit more easier to dissect here. You know, Villanova that was probably the most physical, draining game that they've had all year against West Virginia. West Virginia is a great basketball team. I think they even underachieved a little bit this year. Their press, which I was shocked because I sat here when we started looking at these brackets a couple weeks ago. Mike will tell you this. I said that I didn't think Villanova was going to have as much a problem with West Virginia's press as everybody thought they would because they have great guards, and great guards, can help you. They can help you control the basketball. Well, even great guards apparently can get turned over a bunch of times because West Virginia turned over Villanova a lot in that game. And Villanova still survived, which is a testament to how good they are. I mean, West Virginia's defense was really, really game there. Really, really game. I just don't think they did enough offensively because Villanova, even on its worst day, can score a lot of points on you, and they did that. And that was really the difference. Villanova made more shots, and was able to get to the rim even on a good defense like West Virginia's is, which, I have to say, too, one of the problems with doing a press like West Virginia does, again, if you start to beat it and you start to put that defense on their heels, then, you're not so much a good defensive team because your only defense is what you can do up front, not back towards the rim. And that's the thing. You prepare your team and you find a way to break the press, you pretty much found out that team's defense. So it might be a bad analogy, but it's like when if you have a compound surrounded by a force field. Once you get to the force field, there's nothing to stop you from going forward. That's kind of what it is. So Villanova gets past West Virginia, which I thought if they played Virginia Tech in the second round, that was their scare game. But once that didn't happen, I figured West Virginia was their scare game. And you have Purdue and you have Texas Tech. If Purdue had Haas, I think they would have had a chance. I just think Texas Tech has too much firepower, had too much athleticism. I think that's why they were able to get past them. I think Purdue missed Haas, and it showed, and then yet another injury scare there. But Purdue had a great season. It was a great game, well played. Texas Tech moved on to play Villanova. who, look, Texas Tech gave him everything. Chris Beard's team, you know what he did at Riddle Rock. He had a great career. He really gave it everything. Villanova just has so many guys they can run at you. They can inside. They can score from inside. They can score from outside. They defend well without fouling. You know, which used to be their Achilles heel. They're just too tough. And Villanova goes to the Final Four out of the East, which is something that we all thought would happen. Because again, I feel like I've said it since the beginning of the season. I felt like Villanova. I thought Villanova and Duke were the two best teams. Well, one of them's still here. The other one got close, but they're not going to be there. And I'll talk about that Duke team. Maybe that Duke team that beat a Syracuse team that had a chance. Syracuse's zone was really good in that game. I will say this much, though, for both teams. I've never seen two zone defenses allow so many lobs. Now, for Syracuse's sake, they boxed a lot of those lob passes. But I am shocked by the amount of lob passes that were allowed by these defenses in that game. At some point, you have to make an adjustment and start to shut that down. Nobody did for either team, which is kind of embarrassing. But I digress. Syracuse did a great job in that game. I thought they gave it their all. They made it close. Duke just has, to me, you know, the key to beating Duke is you don't let Bagley beat you. You can allow Allen to take the shots he did. You know, they don't have the perimeter guys that they've had in the past. And it showed this year because if they did, you wouldn't be able to beat them. They've been in the title game. Duke would probably be national champion. They had the kind of the perimeter shooters that they've had in the past few years. They don't. And that, you know, they were more of an inside team, which is not their strength. Duke is a perimeter shooting kind of team. They like to outside the ball. They didn't have that kind of team this year. And Allen, for whatever, look, Grayson Allen to me has not looked the same in 2 years. Last year, you could write it off to the disciplinary stuff, to injury, and to a bunch of different things. This year, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe it was too unselfish. I don't know. But something was off for Grayson Allen all season. He just could not get into a rhythm. It was obvious throughout the season, particularly in this last game, and particularly in this tournament. But yeah, Duke, you know, Bagley's tough to beat. And once you let him start to beat you and get dominant, you're not going to win if you're Syracuse. And that's what happened. Bagley was the difference. They kept it close. He was just a difference. Kansas just tears up Clemson, who tore up Auburn a week ago. You know, again, look, I think people forgot about Kansas. It's not your traditional Kansas team. It's not the best Kansas team they've ever had. They're more one-dimensional, but they're still a very good Kansas team. And I think a lot of people fell asleep on them and started buying into other teams. And Clemson showed you shouldn't do that. Clemson got dissected by Kansas. They made their shots and they moved on. And then you got that Kansas-Duke game that everybody, you know, those that were waiting for a game between the Blue Bloods, which I think is kind of stupid. Not that I didn't enjoy the game. I thought it was a great game. I thought it was a really good game. One of the best of the tournament. But still, you know, all you heard going in was, oh, you know, we don't want too many Cinderellas and all this stuff. People are kind of just, I don't know. You know, some years you get no upsets, people complain. Then years you get too many upsets, people complain. Nobody's ever happy. But anyway, you got Duke, Kansas. Great game. Well played. Duke's zone was working. They kind of held Kansas down, but Kansas is able to get in, just do enough to keep this game going. I thought Duke had the win late. I really did, especially on Grayson Allen's shot at the end. Once that shot didn't go in, I had a feeling Duke was going to lose. I really did. Despite the foul problems on Kansas and that, I thought Duke was going to lose. I thought they were running out of gas. I thought that they just momentum just was on Kansas' side. And that's the thing. Duke, much like Syracuse, was only playing 7 guys. And I don't care if you're playing a zone or not. That's going to hit you. At some point, that will hit you. And I think it hit Syracuse, and I think it hit Duke. I think their guys ran out of gas. You could see it in the way the guys shot the ball. You could see it in the way they were kind of playing defense. I think these guys were spent. I don't care if you have a day off in between games or not. It still affects you. It still affects you. So Duke loses to a Kansas team that I think a lot of people just kind of pushed aside. You know, some people even think they're the best team in the Big 12. And you got Kansas now coming out of the Midwest for the Final Four. So Loyola, Michigan, Villanova, Kansas. I mentioned the Loyola Michigan game and picked Loyola to win it. I'm picking Villanova to beat Kansas. Again, I think this is more of a one-dimensional Kansas team. I know they got Azubuike in the middle, but really it's all about Devontae Graham. Villanova has 3 or 4 guys that can match Devontae Graham as a shooter. Villanova has more shooters. They have more offense. They have more athleticism. They play better defense. They get up and down the floor. They defend well. They handle the ball well. I think Villanova has this game. I'm not saying Kansas is going to be easy. I'm expecting, Kansas to be competitive, but I think Villanova is going to win this game. I really do. I think you're headed for a Villanova-Loyola championship game, and if that's what we get, then I'm still going to pick Villanova to win because I think Villanova would have a lot for Loyola to defend. There's a lot of guys on Villanova, inside and outside, to defend. It's not an easy assignment. I think it'd be a low-scoring game, and I think Villanova would eke it out. But either way, I think this is going to be a very good Final Four. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. You got the Cinderella story in Loyola. You got Michigan there as kind of like that go-between team that they're a blue blood kind of team, but they're kind of like in between. And you got Villanova that's kind of up there too. That's starting to become this dominant force in college basketball. And you got Kansas as that blue blood kind of, I won't say a villain like Duke, but they're up there. That kind of experienced, rich in history type team. So you got a nice mixture here. A very interesting group that I don't think. Kansas wasn't out of the ordinary. Villanova, Loyola was the only one that's kind of out of the ordinary, but still kind of a shocking Final Four, in a way. But I think it's a good Final Four. I think it's going to be a fun Final Four, and I think you're going to have a good championship game, which way you slice it. And I think it's going to be good. I think this weekend and Monday night are going to be some good. It's going to be some good games and a lot of fun, and we'll see. We'll see if the Cinderella story. If the Cinderella story has a good ending, or if John Beilein and Michigan finally break through, if Kansas wins another title, or Villanova wins their second title in 3 years. We'll see what happens. It should be fun. Mike, I know I've been talking a lot. Your thoughts?
Are you done talking?
Yes, I am, sir.
I was watching the Supernatural Scooby-Doo crossover trailer. It looks really amusing. I'm not somebody who watches Supernatural, but that was really good. I think I might have to watch that. That is airing Thursday on the CW. Do you know what else is airing Thursday on the CW? I actually have no idea. I don't watch stuff on CW on Thursdays. That was meant to be a dig, and
yeah,
I forgot what it was a dig for. Anyways, doesn't matter, because 4 is the magic number. We have 4 teams now. We're there. It only took all of this month, but we're there. This month flew by. Didn't it fly by? Didn't it fly by, Brian?
It did. It always does.
It always does, because you know what? We're so wrapped up in basketball. It's just amazing stuff. So you know what? Real quick, I'm not going to talk an awful lot because I'm fading fast, and I would like to sleep at some point. So here we go. Syracuse, who is the unlikely team, the last team that got in. Yeah, they made the Sweet 16, and look, by 2 with 1 minute and 30 left. Tyus Battle was on the free throw line. Excuse me. Syracuse down by 3. Tyus Battle's on the free throw line. If Tyus Battle makes those 2 free throws, Syracuse is down by 1 with like 1 minute 30 left. And suddenly the game changes. Because then Syracuse doesn't fight back from being 3 down or 2 down or 4 down. Syracuse is fighting back from 1 down. And they might play those final minutes a little differently. And we might have had a different team play against Kansas. So you know what? Syracuse almost got into the Elite Eight again, and I would have been very happy. But anyways, I digress. Very surprised. You mentioned that they were built for a tournament run, and they were, man. They were. They survived a couple of rough tests, and they got there. Loyola Chicago, a team nobody thought would get out of the first or second round. Here they are in the Final Four, continuing their Cinderella run, and they're a huge story this year. They are an inherently rootable team, so I imagine there's going to be more Loyola supporters than Michigan supporters, but that doesn't mean anything. Loyola survived a few tough games, a few really close games, a few last-second games. So if Michigan and Loyola is a close game, if that's a close game, that can go either way. So look for that one to be, if that one, and I'm hoping that one goes close because I kind of want to see the 11 seed in the finals. Look, and going back to the Midwest region real quick, you said Duke was one of the best teams in the tournament, and you're not wrong, but I didn't think they were going to beat Kansas. I didn't think either of those teams were going to beat Kansas, Syracuse or Duke. Kansas is a very good team that came on late, and they're always a good team. And you mentioned Calipari earlier. Or excuse me, you mentioned Krzyzewski. If they don't win the title or they don't go far enough, Krzyzewski's like, yeah, we didn't have a good season. I don't know why you're going away. This is going to take 2 more minutes. But whatever. You do you, champ. Krzyzewski's like, we didn't have a good season. But the thing is, Bill Self is one of the other coaches out there who'll be like, our guys didn't play really well this time, and we didn't live up to our potential. Bill Self is the other coach who might throw his team under the bus, so to speak. And that bus being truth, not bus being shifting the blame. So Kansas making it to the Final Four is not surprising, but Kansas is a team everybody wrote off, but here we are again, Final Four. Bill Self is one of the best coaches in the country, easily. And then we have Villanova. Iron Eagle, or it wasn't, I don't think it was Iron Eagle. It might have been, I don't know. An analyst mentioned that Villanova is a team that can play you however you want to be played. You want to run and gun, Villanova can play you like that. You want to slow it down to the half court, Nova can play you that. You want to play a 3-point shootout, Nova can play you like that. You want to be gritty, have an ugly game, Nova can play you like that. Villanova can play you however you want to play the game, whatever your tempo, whatever your style. Nova can play you, it can beat you. And it's scary. Everybody was riding the Virginia train into the tournament. Choo-choo. That didn't last long. Xavier was a favorite. Michigan State was a favorite. Who else? Duke was a favorite. Carolina was a late favorite for some reason. But the thing is, Villanova, despite being number one for much of the year, was almost criminally underrated. Almost. And unfortunately, Kansas and Nova are on the same side of the bracket. So that's going to be a slugfest.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a slugfest down in the Final Four. There's only two number ones didn't make it to this point. The other 2 number ones have to play each other. So we're gonna be guaranteed a 1 seed in the final.
The 2 strongest number ones made it, though.
Well,
my opinion.
Our opinion aside, the analysts and experts would have had you believe Virginia was the strongest number one. And they were wrong.
I mean, based on the way they got to the ACC, they were, but other than that, yeah.
The ACC was arguably the strongest conference. The only other conference that could compete was arguably the Big 12. So there it is. Villanova and Kansas is going to be an interesting game. And I predict Michigan and Loyola is going to be very close. Now, I am not going to predict the winner. I don't want to predict the winner. I know who I want. I know who I want to win. But that being said, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to predict it. It's going to be an exciting weekend. It's going to be an exciting and nerve-wracking weekend. And what is it? It's Saturday. It's Saturday, Monday. So Saturday we're going to have amazing games. Sunday we're celebrating Easter, and then Monday we're celebrating a national champion and/or the Undertaker coming back.
Both.
So we're going to have an interesting 3 days.
Yeah.
That's all I really have to say. I didn't really have amazing analysis.
Well, there's not much to say. So.
There's not a whole lot you can say. I saw the Villanova game. I enjoyed it. I saw the end of Kansas Duke. I was very happy about that. Loyola is a team I haven't gotten a chance to see too much this tournament. I've only seen highlights, and Michigan's a team I've gone out of my way to not see. So, Big Ten and all that shit. So, interesting stuff. Interesting game. Interesting games.
It's going to be, I think it's going to be a really good Final Four. Again, it's a nice mixture of teams. They're all rootable teams, I think, for the most part. So I think that I think that's good. I think it's going to be a good tournament, a good Final Four. It's been a great tournament. Great stories, great moments, upsets, the biggest upset in history. If they can get a good Final Four and a great championship game, this could be looked at as best. I think this could be looked at the best tournament they've ever had. I really do. I mean, it's just been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun to watch. The games, the quality of play, I think it's been great. So we'll see if they can get to the finish line, because usually we talked about this over the years. You got a great first weekend, but then that second weekend's not so good, and then maybe you get it back for the Final Four, and then vice versa. This year, so far you had 2 really, really good weekends. So if they get a third one, boy, this is going to go down as the best tournament they've ever had. It really is. And don't forget too, and we don't talk about it, and that's on us. But you have the women's Final Four too in between Sunday and Tuesday. So if you want, want some basketball, you got that too. Even though it's basically the UConn Invitational.
I'm gonna spoiler alert. UConn's probably gonna win. That's why we're not talking about it.
I think you'd agree with me that the only time that UConn doesn't win is when they get knocked out before they get to the Final Four. So usually,
I think we all secretly hope for it. It's just we don't expect it.
Yeah, I definitely don't expect it right now. So I think at this point all we expect is what the over under is going to be on how many they win by. But yeah, so
alert over 20.
Yeah, normally. So yeah, but I mean the women's games are on if you're interested in those, so you can watch those as well. And this is it. This is the end of the college basketball season, and we'll wrap up the college basketball season next weekend and look ahead to the off season. We'll talk about other things related to it. I know we usually do like an NCAA show. We'll probably do that soon. All that kind of stuff. We'll get into it. So, Final Four this weekend should be fun. I said should be like 3 times, but I was trying to emphasize things, I guess. So with that being said, we have done everything we have to do. We got through the basketball, the other stuff we had to get through. So we're done. As always, the show is over, but does not mean you have to stop interacting and contributing to the show. You need to have your voice heard. We want your opinions, reactions, or comments if we talked on the show. Topic ideas or breaking news items related to sports, entertainment, wrestling, lots to cover. Reactions, opinions, comments, questions about the show, the scheduling of the show, any of these things you can do by email, Facebook, and Twitter. You can email us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at IT Spotlight 411. Remember, hashtag IT Spotlight 411 for anything you tweet regarding our show or anything you tweet at us. And on Facebook, search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook and make sure that you like our fan page once you find it so that you can interact with us and all that good stuff. Again, Facebook and Twitter. Search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook and follow us on there. Twitter at IT Spotlight 411 and use hashtag IT Spotlight 411. Make sure that you follow us on social media for the latest updates about the show, postponements, delays, interact with us, all that good stuff. Make sure that you follow us on Facebook and Twitter. If you'd like to keep up with the show and look back at classic episodes, you have two ways in which to do that. You can stream us anytime on Google Plus and YouTube. Just search In the Spotlight 411 on both those sites. And when you do, you'll be taking our show pages on both sites where you can stream any of the episodes we've ever produced for Google Plus and YouTube. That's every episode from mid-October 2015 all the way up to tonight's current episode. Those episodes are available for you to stream anytime you want. So if you'd like to stream those episodes, go to Google Plus and YouTube, search for In the Spotlight 411, and you can stream those episodes on Google Plus and YouTube. If streaming's not your thing, maybe instant older episodes of the show, maybe you don't like seeing us on screen, if any of that applies to you, check us out on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on those sites, and when you do, you'll be taking our show pages on both sites where you'll have access to every episode we've ever produced in the almost 8 years we've been doing the show. So every episode from our original run on Blog Talk Radio, all our episodes from our Talk Shoe run, all episodes from Google Plus and YouTube that we've streamed, transferred into audio format for your convenience. So every episode we ever done from October 2010 all the way up to tonight's current episode, they're all available in audio format for your convenience in order from the most recent date, that'd be tonight's episode, all the way to the oldest, way back in October 2010. Those episodes are available for you to listen to anytime you want. On Podbean and iTunes, just search In the Spotlight 411, and you can listen to those episodes anytime on Podbean and iTunes. So make sure that if you're interested that maybe missed part of an episode, want to check an episode again, missing an episode, whatever the case may be, you can do all that and more on Podbean and iTunes. So Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes, and Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes. Your ways to keep with the show and look back at classic episodes. Just search In the Spotlight 411. Again, to search In the Spotlight 411 on those sites. I want to thank Mike for being here tonight. Thank you, Mike.
Real quick, there was a fun interview, there was a kind of a trolly interview. Mike Golick and Trey Wingo have a show now on ESPN. It is a shadow of what Mike and Mike used to be, but hey, here we are. Golick had Ronda Rousey on. And Golick asked, are you done with MMA? And Ronda's like, I never said that. And she's like, so there is a chance that you can go back, pause in time. And then Ronda's like, what do you mean? Can I go back in time? That's the question you ask me. He's like, oh, is there a possibility you can go fight UFC again? She said, it's like, well, I can't go back in time. And then she said, I don't know. And it's funny because Mike Golick, who's not too bad, kind of got thrown under the bus by Ronda here. And you know what? It wasn't entirely unwelcome. That was good. I highly recommend you find it online. I know not Sam Roberts kind of retweeted the video, and Court Gaines on Twitter has the video. So it's good stuff, man. It's good stuff. Also, it's time for bed. I'm going to sleep.
Okay, I want to thank myself for another great show. Parents about back. And thank all of you for your continued.
You should also thank the Greatest Showman soundtrack that's playing.
I need to thank Ashley for she needs to turn that down before I get copyright infringed. we got that loud and clear. Thank you. Sorry. Wow. Yeah, because that would be a copyright issue. We don't want that. Just say no. Just say no. Anyway, I want to thank myself again for another great show. Pat myself on the back. Sorry about the interruption. And thank all of you for your continued support and contribution to the show. Thank you so much for watching. Those that will be watching, listening to this later, thank you as well. I hope you all have a great rest of your night. Again, this is our only show of the week. We'll be back here for our next show a week from tonight. That'll be April the 3rd, our first show of April. This is our last show of March, hard to believe. Again, we'll only be doing one show next week. After that, we'll see what happens. I'll let you all know what's going on with that next week. So, again, I hope you have a great rest of your night, a great rest of your week, a great weekend. And if you celebrate Easter, I hope you have a happy Easter and be safe. And we'll see you back here 1 week from tonight. We'll talk Final Four. We'll wrap up the college basketball season, all the other sports stuff we have to talk about. We'll talk about preview the Masters, all that good stuff. First week of baseball, all that we'll talk about. Wrestling, preview. A lot of people ask about WrestleMania. Will we have a preview for that? Of course we will. We might have to do a second show just to do that, but we'll see. Entertainment. We'll have a big show on Tuesday, so make sure you tune in. That's a week from tonight. Again, Tuesday, April 3rd. That's our next show. Until then, I hope you all have a great rest of your night. We'll see you back here 1 week from tonight. Happy Easter. Have a good night. See you next week.